Oh boy, a tier list video. A godforsaken tier list video. This is a new low, isn't it? Creativity has left the chat. I'll admit, this is easily the most generic video I've ever made, but hey, before you judge, don't we all feel the inherent desire to indulge in a bit of good old-fashioned tier listing every once in a while? It's part of human nature, really. With that being said, let's rank a bunch of battle shonen titles, tier list style, a whopping 30 of them, but before we do, we need to get a few things out of the way. Firstly, I obviously haven't seen every single battle shonen out there, so not every show will be on this list. To make up for that, I tried to cover a wide range of shows, be it the classic big three or the major modern titles. I even have the stuff that'll make you go, oh that one, or what's that again, on here. Secondly, these ratings are relative to each other, so an A tier show is A tier with respect to other battle shonen titles. The tiers themselves range from S to D, S meaning the battle is battling and the shonen is shonening, and D meaning it's time to take him out back and, you know. Thirdly, I'll only look at the quality of a show in this video, the amount of influence a show has had over the years, or the amount of nostalgia associated with it will not be considered. And fourthly, a real word by the way, these are of course my own personal opinions, although that doesn't mean you shouldn't have a mental breakdown in the comments, feel free to. With all that being said, let's get to it, make sure to subscribe. First off, Assassination Classroom. These are arranged alphabetically by the way. Assassination Classroom. Now, it's been a while since I watched it. It was actually my first battle shonen, and as such I don't remember much, but I do remember enjoying it quite a bit and being devastated by the ending, so good stuff. I wish I could say more, but again, my memory of it is foggy at best. B tier. Ayakashi Triangle, this weird supernatural show with a bizarre, somewhat creepy body swap plot. This was truly one of the shows of all time. You know, I was excited for it back in the day. I had heard good things about the source and I was looking forward to the adaptation. Unfortunately, the anime was extremely bland, unremarkable and boring. The plethora of production delays didn't help either. D tier. Black Clover, one of the big ones. You know, I like Black Clover. I think this show manages to accomplish a lot of what it tries to accomplish. Yes, it's not exactly a masterclass of writing. You won't see scholars a century from now citing Black Clover as an exemplary display of writing prowess. That won't happen. Also, you'd be dead by then, so you won't see anything, but that's besides the point. Basically, Black Clover doesn't reinvent the shonen wheel. It's not earth-shattering, but that doesn't stop the show from being fun. Yes, it relies on a bunch of shonen cliches, the classic simple-minded, hot-headed, nice guy protagonist, the inner demon, the edgy, cool-looking rival character, the training arcs, the tournaments. It's quite generic, but there's a certain charm to it. The writing feels earnest and sincere despite not being novel. I don't know, I enjoyed it. I usually dislike stories like Black Clover and protagonists like Asta, but Black Clover and Asta themselves are exceptions. Overall, A tier. Bleach. Another major title, part of the revered big three and loved by many all over the world, including me. Well, maybe not love, like perhaps, but you get the idea. Now, I have to tread carefully. As many of you know, Bleach fans and I have a complicated relationship, the same way a Mushoku Tensei fan and the concept of taking a shower have a complicated relationship. Setting aside the unnecessarily defensive fan base, I think Bleach as a story is decent. It's quite good, although it does have its bad habits. A problem I've noticed recently is its over-reliance on that, oh you thought this fight was over? Psych, power up trope. It's that thing where a character appears to be losing only for them to then enter a new state and tip the scales in their favor. Their opponent then does the same thing, and this whole song and dance is repeated a bunch of times. I feel like it devalues the action. Besides that, I love the characters, I like the power system and the way it's implemented into the world itself. I love the music. I'm not the biggest fan of the previous two TYBW cores, but I loved the first one. It's a great show, all things considered. A tier. And that right there is the beauty of tier lists. I just placed Bleach and Black Clover in the same tier, but I don't have to choose which one's better. I know which one is, but I don't have to say it out loud, thankfully. Blue Exorcist. It's fine, kinda whatever. I heard the anime halfway through started to do its own thing and ignored the manga, so maybe the source is better. I don't know, I don't feel strongly enough about this show to say much. C tier. Chainsaw Man. If I speak, I'm in big trouble, but I'll speak anyway. I don't like it. I don't like the characters, I don't like the story, I don't like the general style of storytelling the show goes for. I don't like any of it. I find it weird, and not the good kind of weird. The I don't want to watch/read this anymore kind of weird. Here's the thing, something being different and or quirky doesn't automatically make it good, at least not in my eyes. The only saving grace this series has is the amazing art style of the manga, the amazing direction and animation quality of the anime, and the amazing visual presentation of both. C tier. Dandadan. I'm going off of the anime, by the way. This show is fun and it does a decent job of balancing out its absurdity with grounded character work. I think the characters themselves are charming and the overall premise is interesting. Dandadan, in terms of both visuals and writing, can be divided into two groups, episode 7 and not episode 7. Everything I mentioned up until this point applies to the non-episode 7 part of the show. As for episode 7, it was absolutely phenomenal in every sense of the word. That episode single-handedly raised my overall opinion of the show by a lot. Great series overall. A tier. Demon Slayer, yet another major IP. Now, I've said this before, I'm not the biggest Demon Slayer fan. I think it's a serviceable story featuring serviceable characters doing serviceable things. It's fine. However, we have to acknowledge Studio Ufotable's attempts at elevating the source material, because that's the best thing about this show. I think Demon Slayer is a genuine contender for being the best anime adaptation of all time. Rarely do you see a production team elevate a source material to this level. Be it the content rearrangements, be it the soundtrack, be it the incredible visual direction and animation, everything about the anime is phenomenal, especially when compared to the manga. Ufotable took a, let's be honest, mediocre story and successfully turned it into one of the more enjoyable and compelling battle shonen titles out there. B tier. Dr. Stone. Does it count? It has action and it is very much a shonen anime, but I'm not entirely sure if it's a battle shonen. You know what? Let's draw the line here. Any show that's less battle shonen-y than Dr. Stone isn't eligible for this list. Anyway, I think Dr. Stone is incredible. The first season of it is genuinely one of my all-time favorite seasons of anime. I've explained why before. I do think subsequent seasons of the show haven't quite lived up to the standards set by season 1. They were neither as adventurous nor as compelling, but they were good. Also, I'm intrigued by the direction the story is currently headed in. A tier. Eden Zero. Why does this exist? What the f? This show is the audiovisual equivalent to a full frontal lobotomy. I could feel my brain cells game-ending themselves out of sheer boredom while watching this anime. It's a shame because I thought the first episode was great. It had a cool setting, the story was somewhat compelling, it was promising. Sadly, the author decided to go all lowest common denominator on us. D tier. Fire Force. Now, unlike many, I quite enjoyed this series. Yes, just like every other show on this list, it does fall victim to your typical battle shonen cliches, but unlike the others, it goes all the way with it. It embraces the absurdity of certain shonen tropes and integrates that queerness into the narrative. Also, the anime features a strong visual style and the manga is home to some of the most batshit insane stuff you'll ever read. Seriously, that ending was genuinely bonkers. One of the most ambitious conclusions this genre/demographic has to offer. A tier. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. It's a good show. Obviously, it's not the greatest anime of all time, but it's good. Loved the first and the final arc in particular, while the rest of it was unnecessarily drawn out, somewhat boring, and home to some of the most obnoxious, grating comedy in the history of anime. Do you get it? Edward is short, he's not that tall. Do you get it? Laugh. Laugh now. B tier. Hell's Paradise. Now, I know I'm doing this title a disservice, I'm an anime-only fan. Wait, no, scratch that. I'm an an anime-only viewer. The fuck do I mean fan? I hate this stupid f***ing show. The Hell's Paradise anime, as we all know, was a mess of biblical proportions. It was genuinely one of the worst-looking mainstream shows out there. Nearly every drawing was off-model. The movement ranged from choppy to non-existent. The level of visual consistency ranged from non-existent to non-existent. It was bad, and naturally it struggled to tell the story it was trying to tell. Even if I look past all of that, a very difficult task mind you, it's like looking at a collapsed building and trying to appreciate the carpet design, I fail to see what's so good about this series. I don't think the characters are interesting, I don't think the plot is engaging, I don't get it. D tier. Hunter x Hunter, another classic. I like this show. I have only seen the 2011 version, by the way. I like the power system and the way it's incorporated. I love the story, or at least parts of it. Yorknu and Chimera Ant. It was great. The conclusion to the Netero Meruem fight is genuinely one of my favorite things ever. However, the show is not without its flaws. Just like every other pre-2010 battle shonen, Hunter x Hunter is way too long and drawn out. Some of the arcs are bad and they go on for way too long. Greed Island is 17 episodes long, that's 17 episodes too many. Overall, I think Hunter x Hunter is an inconsistently good show. B tier. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Anime only here, I think this is a fun novel series. It has such a presence, you know, both the visual and the narrative style of it is unique. I will of course look at all 6 parts before assigning it a rating, and that might not be to this show's benefit. I'm not the biggest fan of the first 2 parts. I think part 3 is good, but it's way too long. Part 4 in my opinion is the best this series has to offer. I love the slice of life tone and the general vibe of Morio City, and parts 5 and 6 are great in their own ways. Overall, B tier. The first 2.5 parts are rough. Jujutsu Kaisen. Spoiler alert, JJK is my all-time favorite battle shonen, and it's not even close. I think this series is almost perfect if you ignore the ending. The world building / power system is absolutely phenomenal. The character writing, especially for the likes of Gojo, Yuji, Geto and Sukuna, is masterful. I think the fights are top notch, albeit a bit too self-indulgent. I think the story structure is fantastic. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. There simply aren't that many things wrong with Jujutsu Kaisen. It is a shame that I have to say it's great despite the ending instead of because of it, but it is what it is. In case you're wondering, I have talked about the ending and the final couple of arcs in detail before. All things considered, Jujutsu Kaisen is incredible. Our first S tier, Kagurabachi, a series that got memed into popularity. It's fine, it's a nice change of pace from your typical shonen IP thanks to the protagonist and his calm demeanor and the sheer brutality. So far, I think Kagurabachi is fun, but extremely repetitive, one-note and unnecessarily fast-paced. These aren't major issues given the fact that the manga is still in its infancy stage, but they can morph into major problems down the line if not taken care of. B tier, Kaiju 8. Oh, not good. Not good at all. Bad. Very bad even. I won't say much because I have made an entire video hating on it in the past, but long story short, an awful embarrassing protagonist, a bland cookie cutter cast, a horrendously boring antagonist, a pointless by the numbers plot, and a general lack of anything remarkable. D tier, Mechanical Arms. A recent anime only project directed by Sai Okamoto. This has an interesting history. It started as a one-off Kickstarter project, but somewhere along the way, it got picked up by Pony Canyon and turned into a proper TV anime. The show itself is fine. The first few episodes were great, but then it tried to do too much too quickly, resulting in a convoluted mess. Looked great though, that's a plus. C tier, Mission Yozakura Family. A somewhat repetitive show with a few highlights here and there. Not much else to add. C tier, My Hero Academia. Oh boy. Now, as many of you know, I don't like this show, like at all. I have several problems with it. First and foremost, I hate the cast of heroes. I hate every single one of them except for Endeavor, who's actually an interesting character. On the flip side, I love the villains, and that's not me being edgy. The villains all have interesting personalities, compelling character arcs, and humanizing character flaws. They are great. As such, when a fight between a hero and a villain takes place, which happens a lot, that's kinda the whole main point, I end up rooting for the villains because they are so much more interesting. Here's the thing, it's not real life. A character simply being good isn't enough to make the audience, me in this case, root for him. You need to do more. When presented with conflicts, I find my interest gravitating towards the villains because they've been through more, they are more interesting / charismatic, and some of them make good points. On the other hand, the heroes are these sheltered kids who have every resource at their disposal, be it information or assistance from the police. They are spoiled children, they don't get to decide what's right and what's wrong. I don't like that. I don't like rooting for law enforcement because let's be honest, that's what heroes in this show are. They are cops in costumes. All of that was one of my many problems with My Hero Academia. Perhaps someday I'll cover all of them in detail, but for now, let's slap a rating and move on. C tier. One Piece, or more specifically the first 374 chapters of it. For those of you wondering, I have made no progress with the manga since the last update. Why? Well, let's just say I have been reading an embarrassingly large amount of Korean webtoons lately. Anyway, I have talked about One Piece before. I think the world is incredible, I think the characters are charming, and I think the writing has this weird sense of simplicity that makes even the most mundane conflicts feel impactful. Great series overall, A tier. Orient. Yeah, this one is shite if you will. It's extremely bland, it goes nowhere, and did I mention it's extremely bland? It's extremely bland. D tier. Ragna Crimson. This is an edgy one. Lots of screaming, lots of blood, and lots of production issues. Ragna Crimson is enjoyable at times, especially if you like some good old straightforward action and a protagonist driven by hate. I personally like the former and hate the latter. C tier. Rurouni Kenshin. Now, I won't say much because neither have I read the manga nor have I watched the original anime. I don't know if the remake is a good adaptation of the source, but it's all I can go off of. The show is fine, nothing stood out to me, it's fine. C tier. Tokyo Revengers. Easily the single worst show from this list and quite possibly the worst mainstream show ever. Tokyo Revengers is embarrassingly bad. It's utterly devoid of any goodness. The embarrassing, pathetic protagonist, the pointless, overly dramatic story, the cringeworthy cast of characters, the substandard production. I genuinely do not understand how this show has a fan base. How? The fact that Tokyo Revengers is a real anime airing on real television and streaming on real streaming services and is being watched by real people makes my skin crawl. D tier would have gone lower if I could. Twin-star Exorcists. If I had $1 for every battle shonen anime with the word Exorcist in the title that strayed away from the manga and did its own thing, I'd have $2, which isn't a lot, but it's weird it happened twice. Twin-star Exorcists, I believe, was my second battle shonen anime, and just like Assassination Classroom, I don't remember much, but I do remember enjoying it quite a bit. Is the manga better? Probably, I haven't read it so I wouldn't know, but the fan base seems to think so. But I don't really care, I enjoyed the anime. B tier. Undead Unluck. A very quirky novel series. It's quite entertaining. Also, Yuki Ase's avant-garde, shaft-built visual direction made it extremely unique. I enjoyed it. B tier. And finally, we have Windbreaker. Not exactly a big climactic title to end this video on, but as much as I'd like to talk about Jujutsu Kaisen next, I feel like I shouldn't mess with the alphabetical order. Windbreaker started off strong. I loved the straightforward action-heavy plot. I liked the protagonist. It was fun. Unfortunately, the show then devolved into the most self-serious, needlessly dramatic and cringe pile of shonen slop ever. Some parts of the show made my stomach churn while others made my skin crawl. Windbreaker is genuinely one of the most cringe-worthy things I've seen in a minute, and that's saying something because the medium we are talking about is anime and the demographic we are talking about is shonen. C tier would have been lower if it wasn't for the cool-looking action. And that was the list. Which placements do you agree with? Probably not many. And which ones do you disagree with? Probably all of them. Let me know down in the comments. Also let me know if I should make more of these videos in the future, perhaps about another genre or about another topic entirely. And that's about it. Liked the video? Check out this other bit of content on screen. Like and subscribe, and until next time.